All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, good morning and thank you for joining us for our panel discussion on personal protective equipment. This morning we have 3 panelists from Premier Safety who will be available to answer all of your questions. Starting out with a few webinar logistics. This is being recorded and we will send out instructions on how to listen to it after. That way, if you have to leave at any point, you will still get the full recording. And then you can use the questions box on your screen to submit any questions for our panelists. I would first like to introduce our Dayton Area Logistics Association's chair, Mark Jones, and thank the steering committee for their help with this event. And this morning we have Craig Brown, Aaron Jacob, and Amanda Klug as our panelists. So thank you guys for joining us this morning and letting us ask you a few questions on PPE. We have a few questions that got submitted already, so we'll start with those, and then we'll go on to the attendees' questions that come through as well. So starting out with, and the 3 of you, just whichever one wants to answer, feel free. None of these are geared towards a specific person. But what are some best practices for sharing company vehicles or trucks? Many of our logistic members, they deal with trucking and they might have multiple employees using the same truck. So what's kind of the best practice for that right now?
Amanda, you want to jump in on that?
Yep,
Okay.
I was going to say, sorry about that. I forgot that I had put my microphone up. Good morning, everybody. So as far as using the same truck, I guess it depends on what situation you're in a little bit, but we really follow CDC guidelines and kind of what we look for as far as long haul drivers or short haul. I guess kind of, can we talk a little bit about what mix of transportation we have on the line with us and where we should gear this as far as semis or small delivery? Is that okay, Jenna?
Yeah, so we have members who kind of deal with both. So we have kind of a large variety of company sizes and kind of what their specialty is as far as our logistic members.
Sure. Okay. So I think what is important is, as far as sharing trucks, is depending on how quickly you're sharing them, if what you have on hand in your truck, wipes, sanitizing spray, masks and gloves, depending on if you're sharing with another partner right there in the delivery truck, or if you're just sharing the truck after shift. So definitely, if it's another group of people coming into the truck, you'll want to sanitize it completely with a sanitizing spray, wipe down the steering wheel and all of the components of the vehicle. And then if you're riding with somebody, you'll definitely want to mask up and depending on the parameters, maybe wear gloves depending on what you're doing, and just make sure you have hand sanitizer and everything ready to go. Aaron, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, the other things that I would say is there is some sprays out there that we provide that you spray on, and within 10 minutes it'll dry. So you can spray it on, and then it's going to totally sanitize your vehicle, and it won't hurt any of the vehicle. And as Amanda was saying, CDC, that's the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, just so everybody knows. Everything that we're sharing today is also on their website. They have a very good website with all this information that we're going to provide is also on their website that you could follow their guidelines.
Perfect, thank you. So how can a company determine what PPE they need and how much of it they need or should have on stock?
Well, I could probably do a little of this. If you look on the CDC website, kind of go by the occupational risk pyramid for COVID-19. So it really determines at the very lower risk, you have jobs that are not required to contact with people known for suspected or being infected with COVID. No frequent contact with individuals within 6 feet, the general public, and minimum contact with other coworkers. So someone like that really doesn't need much PPE. Whereas you go to the next step, the medium risk is jobs that require frequent or close contact within 6 feet with people who may be infected but are not known or suspected with COVID patients. And areas where there's a lot of frequent contact with travelers may return from other locations that may have suspected COVID areas. And then as you move up the scale, the high risk is really, high potential or known suspected sources of COVID-19, more like licensed healthcare, first responders. And then you have the very high risk, which is basically the medical team that's taking care of people with COVID. So kind of go back to that is kind of your hierarchy of what you need. And really, you need to just provide the basics of the PPE. If Aaron wants to talk about some of the basics.
Yeah, so you can provide an employee with either a surgical mask, KN95, an N95 with gloves, a variety of equipment, goggles or glasses, safety glasses, or shield. It depends on how close they are to a person and depends on their job. Some hospitals, which are in certain areas, they might be using a powered air purifying respirator that is giving air into the face piece or the face mask. It depends on the application. One thing is the other thing that we all didn't think about is the weather is getting close to the 100 degrees in certain areas. Is sometimes you might go through more PPE than what you thought in the beginning. So you want to make sure that you have that on hands. Some employees were given maybe 1 or 2 surgical masks or KN95s. KN95s are the mask right now out there because the N95s are very hard to get. But you want to make sure that you're giving the employees enough to be able to get through their day, their shift, and be able to have breaks or times to go ahead and get a little bit of fresh air and a downtime. So that's some other things that you want to look at besides just giving the PPE and the hand sanitizers and washing your hands. It takes time. So it's a different arena, different area, different time that we're going through today. But it's just making sure that you're practicing the best practices.
And just a little bit more on PPE and things. So, when COVID hit, our jobs as safety distributors changed a little bit, just like everybody else did. We were primarily supplying safety equipment for people to do their day in and day out job and keep them safe on the job. Now we're keeping everybody safe from each other, essentially. And what we're kind of seeing as far as trends go is, right at the beginning, we couldn't get our hands on masks very well. We had to really vet out, because if you've seen on the news, the masks that are fraudulent or not good masks, we had to go through a lot of that, and a lot of safety distributors are doing the same thing. So we saw the need for masks rise and the demand low, and then we kind of caught up a little bit, and right now we're caught up, but we are seeing right now the trends go to masks and gloves are going to be a hard thing to get for a little while, with schools going back into session and things like that. So just being in the know of the trends of what is kind of the hot items in the time is very important to keep masks and things on hand, because once they're gone, we have to wait to get them in, and we're all trying very hard to do that, but we also want to make sure we're giving you a quality product that is safe.
Thank you. So we have seen a number of COVID-19 cases rising in our local area. How can companies ensure that they are ready if the numbers continue in the upward direction? And some of this might kind of fall into just what you had spoken about.
One thing is thermometers to take employees' temperature. Just like when we go on site to a customer site, we are asked a series of questions. Have we been around somebody that's had COVID? Have we been in contact? There's certain questions. So we have to think about that also. So employers should have those questions. Just like when we enter our building, we take our temperature in one area. We come through one entrance, we exit through another. We wash our hands, certain things that we follow. We have hand sanitizer available. We have gloves available. So certain things that we're following the best practice.
Thanks, Aaron.
You're
Many
welcome.
of our member companies were able to remain open as an essential business during the current pandemic. However, what should a company consider when establishing a contingency plan in the event that restrictions are increased again?
Yeah, I think most companies right now are seeing or doing that by have most of the workers work from home. I think, and a lot of companies I think have found out that people are productive or more productive working from home. There's not as many, distractions, and when you're working from home, it seems like kind of lose track of time, and you tend to work a little bit longer than what you normally do. So I think the contingency is really being able to have your workers somehow work from home, have their home offices set up with the right computer system, and all the needs that the phone lines and all that ready to go.
And then with the construction workers and others, you need to make sure that you provide the certain needs of equipment. The other thing is, before we would be able to run into a McDonald's and use the restroom. Now there's certain facilities, they're closed as drive-through or takeout only. So that's other things that you have to keep in mind to make sure you have the right equipment on site. We've provided hand washing stations. We've provided other pieces of equipment that, as Amanda said, we never provided before to our end users.
And I would say, oh, I'm so sorry, Jenna. I would just also say communication is even a bigger deal, I think, with companies right now, and communicating to all the levels of their employees to know, everybody from the president down knows that policy and procedures and knows the expectations, because I think the reality is if we haven't been impacted by COVID yet, we're going to be. Somebody close to us is going to test positive. And what does that mean for your employees? And just so they know the expectations they need to follow, so that they can slow that spread and following those guidelines and things. And then I guess as far as like transportation goes, also thinking a little bit forward, knowing the expectations of those locations you're picking up from. Maybe that's a new process. If they're a location that you're delivering to or picking up from all the time, you probably know their expectations, but if not, it may be a good thing to reach out to them and find that expectation out of, when I pull up to your location, what's the expectation for me? How are you keeping me safe, and how am I keeping you safe? So just communication has to be very open and very transparent, I think.
Definitely. Thanks, Amanda. What kind of maintenance is required for PPE?
Well, it depends on certain PPE. A lot of this PPE, you're properly disposing it. So you need to have a place where you can properly dispose your mask, properly dispose your gloves, and that trash is getting taken out at a certain time throughout the day. A lot of this is certain equipment that's only used once. Now, there is other equipment that we have sold, face shields and things like that. That is properly going ahead and sanitizing with about 1 tablespoon of bleach to 5-gallon bucket of water. And then we've had some customers go ahead and dip those into the bleach with proper gloves on as their PPE, let them air dry and sanitize. Then so another employee could use that, because that's a little bit different face shield than the inexpensive one that the market has out there. So it's really knowing what the guidelines are and following the instructions when you receive the product. How do you go ahead and properly clean it?
One of the questions that was submitted was, can a face shield be a substitute for a face mask?
It can be. It depends on the face shield and the cover and how far that face shield goes down. You could wear a face shield and a surgical mask. Some people, it's hard to wear a mask, a surgical mask, or KN95 or an N95 just because of breathing difficulties. So they might wear that face shield. The other thing that no one thinks of out there, my wife is hearing impaired. She reads lips, 100% reads lips. Do you know, it's very hard and difficult right now for her to go into a store and she can't understand employees. She never learned sign language. So it's certain things that we don't think of a norm, because we've all were put into a certain situation, and now we're wearing masks out in the public or certain areas when you go into a grocery store. So it's a little bit different arena. We just have to take it calm and do our jobs and work out there and follow the best practices.
Completely right, Aaron. What should companies be considering or looking at when traveling to different states for work? I know.
The big thing is we recently had an employee go out of state, and you want to first see what the policies are going into that state. So you want to make sure, what you need to do before. Some states require you to go ahead and stay around or stay away from people. And then there's other states, when you come back, you need to go ahead and isolate yourself again. So it's depending on state by state. So you want to look at the state guidelines and look at the state and see what they say you can do or cannot do before entering or exiting their state. Amanda or Craig, do you want to jump in?
No, that really covers it. That's just basically the state guidelines. Everybody seems to be different. Some people, it doesn't matter across the state lines. Other ones, they want you to quarantine yourself for 14 days. So you really need to look on a state website and see what the guidelines are.
And I think as far as traveling transportation wise, I actually asked this question. One of my coworkers here, her husband is a long haul driver. So he goes from California to New York sometimes. And so I asked him, I said, how does that work? And what's the expectations? You live in Iowa, but you pick up in California and then you head wherever they need you to go. And he said, right now, when you get to a place to drop off, they take your temperature, they check all of those things. And generally, he's not allowed where he used to be allowed. He sits in his truck while they unload and then he takes off. So minimal contact, but he said because they are essential workers and that has to continue, those kind of 2-week quarantines are because they're in and out, quickly. But so he said, because of them being essential workers, that is lifted for them in that specific aspect. But I think just knowing, like Aaron and Craig said, just knowing the expectations depending on the field of work you're in when you go into that state.
Thanks, Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of goes back to what Aaron had mentioned about the face shields and how they do have benefits, especially for people who are hearing impaired or who might read lips. We've seen employers who use both. Would you recommend face shields over face mask in certain situations? What are the benefits of each?
Well, the big thing is protecting yourself and also protecting you around somebody. So it depends on if you're wearing a face shield or a mask. You exhale and say you had COVID, you're not spreading it and staying your distance. And then at the opposite, so if you're intaking the air or somebody else, so it's protection.
Uh-oh.
You okay, Craig?
I dropped out there.
Jump in.
No, I'm having connection problems here.
Is the face shield still offering, though, the same protection as the face mask if it comes down far enough, or?
Yes, it is. It is.
I know earlier, one of the first or second questions, you talked about when people are sharing a vehicle to both mask up. Is there any other things that a company should be considering if employees are like traveling to a job site together in a same like company vehicle?
I would say probably just, you know, kind of distancing and as much as you can in a vehicle, but and wearing that mask in the vehicle while you're with that other employee or your coworker is essential in their safety, as far as making sure that you're both protected until you can get to the job site. And depending on the job site and what's required there, or how far you're working away from each other or together, all depends on, you know, can you social distance or not while doing your job?
Thanks, Amanda. So that is the last of the questions that we have submitted. Does anyone else have a question to ask either Amanda, Aaron, or Craig? Give people another minute or two, but I did want to mention that the Dayton Area Chamber has our Stay Safe Dayton store. It offers everything from PPE to cleaning supplies to signage. So if your company is in need of any of that stuff, please check out our store. You can access it through our website, www.daytonchamber.org, and there is special pricing for our members. Of course, if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to the chamber. I'm sure if you need anything else that any of our panelists from Premier Safety would be able to work with you as well. I think we have one more question coming through, so give me just a minute.
Hey, Jenna, this is Stephanie. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hey, guys, this is Stephanie with the Dayton Chamber. Craig and I have worked together with the Safety Council in the past, and I wanted to pop on and ask a quick question. Aaron, I think it was you who mentioned some of the special considerations during sort of the summertime heat. We've covered kind of in the past some of our safety events, how some safety practices need to change in the hot summertime. And I think especially now with so many people who are wearing masks that may be impairing breathing, what are some recommendations or best practices you're seeing from employers as they navigate some of these new requirements in the context of the hot summer weather that we're seeing?
So the big thing is making sure they have the right tools like water or Gatorade or certain drinks being able to provide during that time of need. Then the other things is say cooling towels, giving breaks when breaks are needed. There's certain things that you can go ahead. There's certain safety vests and safety t-shirts out there that have a certain material that are cooler. The one thing that you want to make sure is you can only wash those so many washes, and then they need to be properly disposed. So there's a variety of different cooling products that we have for hard hats, the back of your neck. We have gaiters, light gaiters. We have certain products that you could go ahead and dip also into a cooling bucket of water and wear that product to cool you throughout the day. There's cooling safety vests. So there's a variety of different products, but you want to be careful on sharing them. If you do, you want to properly sanitize them. So there's certain things that you want to go ahead and follow the best practice of the manufacturer's recommendation, but we see giving more breaks. That is a key today. We see more breaks within an hour shift, maybe giving 10 to 15-minute break, so that you can go ahead and see if you need to change your mask, go ahead and see if you need to clean your shield, go ahead and see if possibly you need to, hand wash, things like that, so that you have a little bit of time before you go on and start another hour of your job.
Thanks, Aaron. Another question is, with the changes in the CDC guidelines, should offices still be sanitizing on a regular basis throughout the day?
It all depends. I mean, people should follow what their employer has set in place of certain guidelines and follow those. But you want to make sure with hand sanitizers and things like that, sometimes using too much could dry out your hands. So you want to make sure, or washing your hands. So there's certain guidelines you want to follow when you're going ahead and changing PPE, or you want to make sure you're wearing the right equipment. Nitrile gloves, some have powder, some are powder free. There's other gloves out there besides nitrile, in case some employees have allergic reaction to latex or nitrile. There's other PPE that we do offer.
And I would just kind of add to that, in an office setting, I think it depends on how much you're moving around. Like, are you at your desk and working in your workstation? Is somebody close to you? I would say if people are coming in and they're close to you in that situation, it absolutely doesn't hurt to wipe down that area that you're working at. The lunch area and break room, absolutely make sure you're wiping that down as well, I would say, as you leave or what have you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to thank all of our panelists again for answering our questions, providing so much insight that is extremely valuable right now with everything going on. A few other things before we end today. We do have our employer coronavirus resource guide on our website. We do update it daily as new information is coming out. To see any future webinars that we have going on, you can visit our website and they are listed under the events tab. And then our member services, we'll get today's webinar uploaded onto there, but if you're looking for anything else, please log into your member account to find those resources. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you found this webinar helpful, and feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions in the future, or if you had a question that didn't get answered today, we'd be happy to follow up with you.